All right, welcome back, everybody. In this video, we're going to cover the movement and conditions and how we handle that in Middle-earth strategy game within Roll20. So movement and conditions, that can be found in game under the journal section under rules. You can expand the movement and conditions folder. This right here will be kind of a cheat sheet of all the individual ones that are in here right now. So this is kind of what I'm going to cover in this video. Feel free to peruse through this at your leisure if you'd rather just read it than listen to me. All right, so moves and conditions. Let's start off with back away. We talked about that before. So when someone loses a duel roll, not only do they have a chance to be stricken and take a wound, they also are forced to back away 1 inch. So once the winner of the duel roll has been determined, the loser must back away in a direction chosen by the controlling player. To back away, the losing model must move 1 inch in a straight line, though this does not have to exactly be directly away. When a model must back away, it may move through the control zones, which we'll talk about here in just a second. May move through the control zones of enemy models, but cannot move into base contact with them. Again, just to reiterate, base contact is the two bases of these tokens are touching each other. That's base contact. As long as I am not touching, I am in that control zone, which is basically a 1 inch circle around this guy. So if I use my handy dandy measuring tool, let's pull that up here. And I go from Feely. So 1 square away, as long as I am that far away, I am not engaged. So he has a zone around him of 1 inch, a control zone. And I'll talk about that a little bit more coming up here. Because we are talking about backing away. Okay, so when a model must back away, it may move through the control zones of enemy models, but cannot move into base contact with them. So when a model must back away, this will not count as a normal move. So say they move before this, it does not add to that 5 inches or 30 feet or whatever their movement was. Just it's a normal part of, I guess, combat. So it can still be done if a model used their full move value during their activation or has been affected by a special rule or magical power that would normally prevent them from moving. This also means that backing away is not slowed by difficult terrain, and backing away cannot be used to cross obstacles like a fence or a bush or anything that's got height to it. Backing away cannot be used to cross these obstacles or take a jump, climb, or leap test, which we haven't talked about yet. That's different ways that you get over obstacles. However, if the loser is at the edge of a vertical drop, say a drop off to a cliff or a pit with nowhere else to back away, then they must back away over the edge and will fall, as described on we'll talk about here with falling. Any strikes against that target that's going to fall still take place before they fall over the edge and potentially take any falling damage. All right, next up is charging. So if a model wants to fight an enemy model, and then it must first charge the enemy model. In order to charge an enemy model, a model must have the line of sight to the enemy model at the start of its move. It means to be able to see it. Kind of makes sense. And so to charge, measure distance, make sure it's within your movement. And if the model's move value provides it with enough movement to reach its target and get into base contact. So once it's in base contact, it means you guys are engaged. Once it's engaged, they are both engaged in combat. So again, Thorn is attacking Feely. Once he gets up here, Feely is now engaged away. He cannot choose not to fight. See, models that are engaged in combat cannot be activated. Means technically, if there is, at this point, this guy is in his move phase. Once he comes up here, he no longer has a move phase. So if there's some kind of a special rule heroic action that happens during the move phase, he can no longer do that because he is now engaged. That's what that basically means. It is quite possible, due to order in which you activate your models, that a model could not make a charge earlier in the phase, might become able to as your activation phase continues. People move around, again, they get separated. If there's not base contact, they can still do their move. Or charge, should say. Charging and control zones. Again, we talked about control zones, basically like a 1-inch, I guess, circle around the outside of them, or gap. There are a few rules regarding control zones that are important to note when charging. The first is that if a model enters the control zone of an enemy model, then they must charge that model if they are able. So if I get within 1 inch of Feely, and he's my enemy, I have to charge. I can't get within 1 inch and then leave again. So if I get within 1 inch, we're fighting. Does that make sense? So as long as I, switch back to my selection tool. So as long as I stay, roughly 1 inch away, and since we're playing in Roll20, I mean, we're not going to ask you to measure things out. Just say I'm going to stay, away out of his control zone as you move through here. In some cases, then we have to measure, like you're not going to be able to fit through between Feely and Keely without getting to someone's control zone. But again, just as long as you stay out of that 1 inch, you're fine. But once you get within 1 inch, you have to charge, you have to get in base contact, and you have to be engaged. So that's why positioning of your warriors and or your men can become crucial if you're trying to protect someone in the back line. They can't break through the lines, if that makes sense. Third rule is that once a charging model enters a control zone, they may ignore the control zones of other enemy models in order to charge their original target from a possible different position. This means that no matter how densely packed enemy models are, a model is always able to charge the first enemy model whose control zone it moved into. So just say, for example, here in this one, let's pick good guys and bad guys. Let's do this guy, and let's do these two. Let's move them up here so the words aren't in the way. So if Thorn is going to charge Azog and this guy, once he gets up here within his control zone, I mean, regardless of where his control zone is, if he moves here, he disregards this one. He is now engaged with Azog, and vice versa. Once these two are engaged, Azog's control zone goes away because these two are now engaged. Same thing for Thorn. He no longer has that control zone of 1 inch, so other enemies could potentially go right on by him. If they get within 1 inch, they don't have to engage, because right now Thorn and Azog are, if that makes sense. So again, comes into strategy if you're trying to protect someone from behind you. Don't leave a gap big enough, because once you're engaged, the bad guy can run right past you without having to charge you if he gets into 1 inch of your control zone. The fourth rule is that a model that wishes to charge an enemy model that has lost its control zone may ignore the control zones of other enemy models that it would be impossible for them to charge. This only applies if they cannot charge a model due to placement of the models making the charge impossible. That's kind of what I said there. So basically, once they're engaged, I can now move past them. Charging multiple enemies. I think I may have covered that just there, but let me read this off. So models can charge multiple enemy models should they wish. To do this, the model must have high enough move value to reach it. So basically, what they're saying here is, in that same scenario, if these two work for position here, once he gets into his control zone but not in base contact with it, he still has freedom to move about his control zone. And if he can get into base contact with both these guys, then they're both engaged. So this guy can no longer choose not to fight. He is now engaged. Okay, his control zone is now stopped, and so is his. It says, remember that after a model has entered the control zone of an enemy model, it will ignore the control zones of other enemy models, and so it's free to enter the control zones of any other enemy models as it completes its charge against multiple enemies. Next up will be defended positions. Probably won't go into detail here in this video because there's like 3 pages that kind of define this. So just as a 10,000-foot level. Sometimes a model may wish to charge an enemy model that was on the other side of a wall, a hedge, or other barrier. And there are, many factors in determining how certain obstacles can affect the defensive positions. For this series, I'm not going to go into detail with it. I encourage you guys to read the full rules on defended positions. That starts on page 54 of the rules manual. I may eventually add handouts within Roll20 to cover this, but it's a lot of different scenarios, and so I just want to cover those as we come across them in game. Okay, another movement and condition. We talked about charging. We talked about control zone. Falling. We talked about the fact that when you back away, you could fall off a cliff, but what exactly does that mean? So a model that falls in any situation will become prone, and there is a separate handout here for prone that goes in a lot of detail about that. I may or may not cover that in this video. So anyway, a model that falls in any situation will become prone at the bottom of whatever it has fallen from. If a model would fall and land overlapping another model, we just got to move the falling model out of the way minimum distance so it's not overlapping or in base contact with another model. If the distance the model has fallen is equal to or less than their own height, then they will suffer no further effects. But it says, their activation will automatically end. If a model falls a distance greater than their own height, then they will suffer falling damage. And when a model suffers falling damage, they will take one strength 3 hit plus another strength 3 hit for every full 1 inch or 5 feet greater than their height that they have fallen. Again, so that strength hit still goes to that 2 wound thing. A strength 3 hit versus defense to see if they take a wound or not. Okay, so that is falling. Next up is paralyzed. Again, I got another handout here for it. So paralyzed is I've only seen it as a condition of a spell to this point. There may be others where paralyzed is a thing. But basically, a paralyzed target is completely helpless. They can't move their limbs or even utter a word. So it's kind of like stunned to the nth degree. So the paralyzed model becomes prone and may not do nothing until it recovers. This includes activating, shooting, declaring heroic actions, using active abilities or special rules. If a paralyzed model is engaged in combat, means base contact with somebody, it may contribute no dice to the duel roll and does not provide its fight value. It may also not make strikes or stand up if the side wins. If a paralyzed model is the only model from its side involved in combat, then it automatically loses the duel roll, and basically no dice are rolled. At the end of the end phase of each turn, a paralyzed model may roll a d6. On a 6, the model immediately recovers. They may use might to improve this roll if they want to. Additionally, after making this roll, any friendly model in base contact with a paralyzed model may also roll a d6 one at a time. If any model rolls a 6, the paralyzed model immediately recovers. Like a hero model may use their own might to improve this roll as well. If a paralyzed model is in a water feature, they call water features. I don't know why they call them features, but if you're in a lake, if you're in a river, I think there may be more to it as far as how deep it is. But basically, if you're paralyzed, you're prone, and even in shallow water, you're going to be, potentially suffocating or drowning. So it says if a paralyzed model is in a water feature at the end of the move phase, then it must take a swim test to see if it sinks. And again, swim test, I think it's even in paralyzed here. Yep, down at the bottom here. So again, I've got all the tests in here for different things you do. I'll have links to them in other places to kind of make it easier on you guys. But a swim test is basically a chart here where you roll a d6. If you roll a 1, you're overcome by weight from your war gear. It's in complete inability to swim and drowns. Remove the mod as a casualty. So this is serious. I mean, you can die just from being in the water and sinking. This says nothing about the number of wounds, just says remove the model as a casualty. Following circumstance will modify the result of swim test. Models cavalry, +1 modifier. I guess that gives them a little bit bonus if they're on a mount. Model equipped with heavy armor or heavy dwarf armor. You have a -1 modifier to that roll. If a model is carrying a shield, but not a light shield, apply a -1 modifier. If the model is carrying a banner, apply a -1 modifier. So I find it surprising that a paralyzed person does not have a negative to this roll, because I don't see how you can swim strongly. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I may have to do a little digging on the rules to see if I'm missing something, but I don't see anything else that says a paralyzed model in the water feature to see if it sinks. All right, good to know. We'll have to look that up later. Next up is going to be prone. Again, got a handout for it. Prone's a pretty big category, so I may just hit the highlights of this one, let you guys read it. So basically, if a model is ever knocked to the ground, like there's a certain situations like a mount getting hit, getting thrown from a rider, or certain creatures can knock you to the ground, then they will immediately become prone. And the token should be turned sideways in Roll20 as a visual representation of their prone position. So I think some of you guys, most of you guys should know this, but if I click on a token, you see this little blue dot on the outside here. If I grab that and I rotate it, I can turn my token sideways. So that's what I'm looking for you from you guys if or when one of your models or characters gets knocked prone. Okay, so I got a few limitations, other conditions that apply to prone models. Control zones. Uh, Prone models do not have a control zone. Okay, I think I covered that. So if you're prone, you no longer have that 1-inch area around you that people must charge you if they come within it. They can run right past you as long as they don't come in base contact with you. Line of sight. A prone model is considered to be half its normal height for the purpose of working out line of sight. Crawling. When you are prone, basically all you can do is crawl if you're not going to stand up. And a crawling model may only move up to 1 inch, regardless of the kind of terrain it is in. So even if you're in difficult terrain, you can still crawl 1 inch. However, you cannot charge, and you can't make any kind of a jump or a leap or a climb test. And the only thing you can do is, the only other thing you can do when it moves is to stand up. Okay, it's either move 1 inch or half your movement to stand up. Standing up and lying down. I'll about to talk about that. So during your move, a prone model may stand up at the cost of half its move value, and you may then use its remaining move value to move as normal, including charging. A standing model may lie down, also at the cost of half its move value. A model may not both stand up and lie down in the same activation or turn. If it does either, then it will still count as having moved during their activation. So it still counts as being moved. I guess that really only applies to like if you're trying to shoot. So if you lay down and shoot up, it's considered half your movement. And depending on what you're shooting with, you have a penalty or can't move it or can't shoot at all. A prone model may stand up while in a control zone of an enemy model without charging them, as long as they are not in base contact with them. See, charging a prone model. As a prone target has no control zone, enemy models can move within 1 inch of them without having to charge them if they wish, provided they do not come into base contact with them. Jumping over prone models. Models may attempt to jump over prone models exactly as if they were an obstacle. That's where you got to do a jump test. So again, if I go into prone here and I scroll down somewhere, yep, jump test right there. So again, it's another graphic. Kind of shows if you roll a 1, you stumble and fall. 6, you get it across effortlessly. And a little more description here. We'll cover this probably in another video. All right, so they may attempt to jump over models as if they were an obstacle. See the jump test with the following exception. A model cannot jump over an enemy model that is larger than itself. An example here is hobbits cannot jump over dwarves or goblins. Dwarves cannot jump over men or orcs. Men cannot jump over wargs or horses. Wargs cannot jump over trolls. Again, it's all based upon their size. And I think for the most part, I have larger models marked with their size, so you can try to help with that logic there. So if we just look on here, all these are going to be 25 millimeters, and they probably don't even say it on the character sheet. But let's see if I'm a liar. If I pull up the White Warg character sheet here, yep, you see right there in the bio and info, 50 millimeters. So it is twice as big as a normal person. Now, one thing I haven't put in here is the dwarf hobbit goblin thing. So we need to refer to what I just uh, explained there. That's what the logic of that until I can update all those bio and infos on those. So again, hobbits are the smallest. They can't jump over dwarves or goblins. Dwarves cannot jump over men or orcs, and men cannot jump over like a warg or a horse, and so on and so forth. I'll make a similar rule for inners I haven't defined here, but just know that's the general rule. Prone targets and dual rolls. A prone model will still participate in a dual roll just as normal. However, a prone model if a prone model wins a dual roll, they do not get to make strikes. They can't wound anything when they're prone. Instead, they may immediately stand up if they win the dual roll. A prone model must still back away as normal if they lose. However, if a prone model loses a dual roll, they will always be considered to be trapped. If both models as if they didn't stand up. If they're still lying down, they're considered trapped. Again, trap means they get to roll 2 wound rolls for every successful strike. If both models in a combat happen to be prone, you're both on the ground fighting, the dual roll will still be made. However, the winner will simply just get to stand up, and the loser will back away as crawling as normal. And that covers the prone condition. Trapped condition, we talked a little bit, but I do have a handout for that as well. Let's see if it tells anything more. If a model cannot back away, then they lose a dual roll and they are trapped. Yeah, we covered all this already. So basically, surrounded by someone, stuck up against the wall, stuck in a corner of a building, just you have no way to back away 1 inch. You cannot back away through another model. If you're in base contact with something and there's not enough for your base to fit through it, then you cannot back away and you are trapped. Okay? All right, so there are probably more rules pertaining to movement conditions, but these are the most common. As we play more and discover more, I will add them to the game and may add a short little video to explain those in more detail. All right, so that's it for this video. In our next session, we will probably talk a little bit about either hero death or the heroic actions and special rules for heroes. So see you all in the next video.